Well, good morning and welcome. Thank you so much for being here for this spring update. I have to tell you, I had this morning, as I was driving in, I had my worst nightmare. The worst nightmare of a president is thinking about you're about to give a major address on your campus and nobody shows up. So I go to Das Bog on the way in, and I stop and get some coffee and I work on my notes. And then I walk over to the King Center and nobody's there. It's like realized right away. So I pull out my phone. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. So I really appreciate your being here. Thank you. Well, political strategist Peter Finn said that a basic tenet of a healthy democracy is open dialogue and transparency. And we've really worked hard on that. We know from both of the campus climate surveys that we have done that communication is really critical on this campus and that we just can't do enough of it. And so this is one of the ways that we try to open that communication up by talking a little bit about what's current, what's happening, give you a chance to ask questions that may be on your mind. So today what I'd like to do is to highlight the 7 key priorities for this academic year and to bring you up to date, particularly on some of the budget planning and legislation that's going on in the Colorado General Assembly, and then open it up for questions. We also have Barb Weisky here again. Barb, we've got some great changes that are going to be made on the campus here very, very shortly. And I thought you would want to hear from Barb to see it because it's really going to continue to make our campus just a great place to be, an oasis right here in the middle of the city. So let me just give you a quick reminder of what the 7 priorities are that are related to our strategic plan. The retention, recruitment, retention, and graduation, the AES initiative, the Aerospace Engineering Sciences Initiative, implementing House Bill 1319. Remember, House Bill 1319 was the bill that was passed by Speaker Ferrandino last year that would change move the formula for funding higher education supposedly to a more performance-based, but it would create equity among all institutions because everybody would know and be treated the same way for the factors that are in the formula, and you would know, have more certainty about what your funding was going to be. Achieving Hispanic serving institution status by the 2017-18 academic year. Obviously, our university culture is very important to us, and we continue to strive to improve that. Continuing to increase our local and our national visibility in pursuit of being recognized as a preeminent urban institution. And finally, a little bit about ongoing work around collegiate restructure, how we're organized academically for serving our students. So for the last 3 years, MSU Denver has been deeply engaged in implementing our strategic plan, which is entitled A Time of Transformation. And I really am proud of how faculty and staff have worked together collectively to move this university forward in what can only be described as giant steps. I have to tell you, I just spent 8 days in Washington, D.C., and I want to tell you, no one should have to spend 8 days in a row in Washington, D.C. But I was meeting with the Undersecretary of Education and with the Deputy Undersecretary of Education, as well as other folks, and you cannot believe how people hear what's going on and are positive about what's going on at our university on a national level. It's really very, it's rewarding. I was walking out of an elevator Tuesday morning, and as I was leaving the elevator, there was another woman in it, and I just said good morning, and she said good morning. This was a part of the American Council on Education conference, and she looked at my name tag badge and she said, "Oh, you're at Metropolitan State University." She says, "I've been reading some really good stuff about what you're doing in diversity at Metro State." Never met the lady before, but the fact that there have been articles on a national basis talking about what we're trying to do to improve inclusiveness at our university is resonating around the country. I think that's a real credit to all of you and the work that you have been doing. So we're now embarking on a review of our strategic plan. We call it a refresh. The intention is to refresh and to update it. It's chaired by our Faculty Senate President Sheila Ruski, along with my Chief of Staff Kathy Lucas. And this refresh or facelift will be presented to our Board of Trustees at their June meeting. This past semester, as a part of that, we brought strategic planning consultant Pat Sanahan on campus to talk to stakeholders, including holding 2 open campus-wide forums. I want to thank all of you who participated in these important processes. And I certainly look forward to sharing with you the new document that will come out of this refresh that will look ahead through the year 2020. You know, it's really not that far away, and it won't be very long before we'll start thinking about what's the next iteration after 2020 and where are we going to go. 2020 is such a nice, you know, kind of image, right? It's going to be hard to beat that. So let me just talk a little bit now about where we've been and what the immediate future might hold for us. And I want to begin with retention and graduation because it is all about retention and graduation. It has to be job one for us as a university, particularly when you think about the students that we serve. Students who are largely older, who are largely lower income, first generation, many Pell Grant, 85% of them working. They're trying to change their life's condition and their family's life's condition, and we have to help them achieve that goal. So providing an affordable and accessible education to Colorado students is why we are here. And that's why recruitment and retention of students is our university's #1 priority. It's also reinforced because of how our new funding formula has changed. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but even though the funding formula is based upon this concept of performance, if you look inside of the performance criteria, it's really about credit hour production within that criteria. And so ultimately 93% of the money we receive from the state under the formula will be driven in some form by credit hour production. And credit hour production translates into retention and graduation. So, so the point is that our budget will be wholly dependent on credit hour production, and that truly is not any different than student full-time equivalents. So during this past year, we have really worked hard to try to understand what factors are behind our students leaving the university before finishing so that we can continue to work towards a 75% first-time freshman retention rate. And I want to emphasize, we all know that there is a lot more to a university than simply first-time freshmen. But it is also an important indicator of what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. So currently, we're at a 62% first-time freshman retention rate, and that just is not satisfactory. And I want to say and acknowledge right now that 75%, if we could achieve that, is above what the national norm for universities like ours is. But I think it is a goal that we can achieve because we've got the kinds of people who are committed to students who can make this happen. And why shouldn't we set that sort of big, audacious goal that says, if we can do it, why can't the rest of the nation do it as well? So we went out and we hired a firm called Hanover Consultant, who went and did a survey and actually got responses from, I think, 1,300 students who had left in one of the last 2 semesters. And asked them why they had left. And they could do multiple responses. They weren't limited to a single response. Well, it turns out that the 2 highest responses, 45% of the students said they left because of cost, and 45% of the students left because they said advising. And we looked further into those things. On the cost side, it wasn't necessarily just the price issue, because we clearly are the lowest priced university in the state, and we're in the bottom quartile in price in the country. But it was related to cost because they couldn't necessarily get the aid that they needed. And when we talked to them about advising, it turns out that the advising, again, was twofold. It was advising in their academic units when they needed it, and it was advising about financial aid and the best things they could do to achieve it. So advising continues to be a really big barrier for our students. So to address these issues, we have created a retention task force. And we've also added a new program to identify students at risk in real time, and I'm really excited about this. This is another initiative. We've been working with a group called the Education Advisory Board and a collection of institutions to create a real-time database that advisors and faculty can use with students. It is predictive analytics. It looks at a whole set of data about all of our student bodies over time. And it's capable of telling you, when you're advising a student and they want to take 2 particular courses at the same time in a semester, you can say, you know what, for a student of your, with your particular GPA and all, there is a 90-some% probability that you will flunk one of these classes if you take both of them together. So you need to take this one this semester, and you need to take this one this other semester. And it's that kind of real-time, day-to-day advising that will allow us to do a better job. And the data, the results they've had in working with other universities, they've been able to show dramatically improved retention rates because of the availability of this kind of information to advisors and to faculty to help them to work with students. We've also worked on a plan to improve communication about financial aid options, as well as a program for enhanced enrollment outreach. And I want you to know I'm working with the provost to take another look at the currently vacant Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management position to really ensure that it successfully addresses the university's enrollment and retention needs before we post that position out there. So we've been having a pretty lengthy ongoing dialogue about how best to shape this and what units to include in this so that we can try to maximize the power of these units to improve retention for our students. Here's something I want to tell you where I just want to say to all of you, great job. Great job. Because the good news is that while our full-time equivalent students has grown only roughly 10% over the past 10 years, our degree production, the number of degrees that we are awarding annually, has grown by 62%. And in fact, that's a great, absolutely. You ought to applaud yourselves. In fact, this last year we graduated 3,228 students, and guess what? We graduated the same number of students with a baccalaureate degree that Colorado State University graduated as a selective admission university, and we have the same number of students they do, and we graduated within 15 degrees, the same number of students that they did. That's a great job. Congratulations to all of you. But we can do better. I want to talk a little bit now about the Aerospace Engineering Sciences building. This is one of the most exciting initiatives that I have ever had the opportunity to be involved with in my career in higher education. And it has become, I think, a reality this past year. It's the creation of a degree program specifically for the aerospace industry here in Colorado. How many of you knew that Colorado has the single largest privately held workforce in aerospace in the United States? Yeah, pretty cool, huh? I mean, people think of California, Texas, Florida, maybe Georgia, largest workforce right here in the state of Colorado. But they cannot find people trained to do advanced manufacturing. So our faculty, together with industry leaders, have developed a curriculum specifically designed to meet the employment needs of this key economic cluster. We created more than 25 new courses across disciplines for this new major. What an amazing thing. And I tell you what, I mean, you talk about responsiveness on the part of faculty. This program is a real indicator of that. We will begin offering this degree program in the fall of 2016, a Bachelor of Science in Advanced Manufacturing Sciences that will harness the energy of our eager students to meet the demands of today's industry needs. Now, the university continues to work on breaking ground, we hope in August of this year, and opening the Aerospace and Engineering Sciences building by the fall of 2017 semester. Anderson Mason Dale is currently designing the building, and the university is preparing a request for proposals to acquire an underwriter to issue the bonds by this summer. And I think you've seen some pictures. This is really cool. So this is the end of the building that's right at 7th and Auraria Parkway. So as you're coming down off of I-25 on Auraria Parkway and you're coming down that ramp and you get to that first stoplight and you see that satellite up there, it's going to scream out how important aerospace is to Colorado. And we've already talked to Lockheed Martin about it's their job to actually get a satellite for us to hang in that. You know, it's just like a couple $1 million thing. So shouldn't be, you know, it's a pretty nice bling to put into a building, I'll tell you. So where are we on the building? Well, as you know, last year, the Joint Budget Committee and the legislature appropriated $5.8 million to do the design. This building is conceived as a public-private partnership, 1/3 from the state of Colorado, 1/3 from the university, 1/3 from the private sector. This year we came back in to the state for the remaining $14.2 million of state funding. The governor recommended it in his budget. The Capital Development Committee recommended it as one of its 6 highest higher education priorities. It's in front of the Joint Budget Committee right now. They have not finalized their capital list, but will finalize it by this week because they intend to introduce the long appropriations bill a week from Monday. But what the holdup we understand is they're trying to put in some of the governor's capital projects that didn't get put in by the Capital Development Committee, but the word is that our project is in very good shape right now. So we are anticipating that that appropriation will occur. We're ready with our debt capacity on our $20 million. And the really cool thing is that the governor has agreed, he's sent out invitations to the leadership of aerospace and advanced manufacturing in Colorado for a reception at the governor's mansion for these industry leaders, in which he will personally make the ask for the $20 million, to be followed by a private dinner with just the CEOs of those companies, to really emphasize how critical this building is to them and to the state of Colorado. That's real leadership on the part of our governor, and we need to be sure to thank him the next time any of you see him for his support of this really wonderful facility. So we anticipate the long appropriation bill will come out in a week. It'll take a month for the legislature to deal with that, and then we will be on track for issuing the bonds and starting construction of this building in August. We've received a lot of visibility on this project, and in fact, this past week while I was in Washington, D.C., I met with the Smithsonian Air and Space magazine and with U.S. News and World Report to share details of this project. And just yesterday we met with the Denver Post op-ed staff to share details of the initiative, and I think you will probably see something coming out in the Denver Post in the not too distant future in support of this. And finally, on the capital piece, I just want to take a brief moment to say, if you've not been over to the new Regency Athletic Complex, you need to get over there. It is a really cool facility. We already are doing tennis with Greenlee Elementary School, helping young students learn the value of tennis. We're working and moving forward with Major League Baseball to do inter-city baseball for inner-city kids. We'll be doing the same thing with soccer and softball. We're going to use this not just for our intercollegiate athletics programs and for our intramurals and recreation programs, but we're really going to use this to bring the community in, engage young people in the value of sports, and along the way, you know, maybe get them interested in coming to our university out in the future. And with that, I'd like to take a moment to invite Barb Weisky up here to talk a little bit about these really cool things that are going to happen on our campus this year. So Barb, come on up.
Well, good morning. It's always such a great pleasure to be here, and I always enjoy any opportunity to share some really cool photos, because we've got some really great stuff going on. A lot of these projects you began to hear about last year, and I'm pleased to say that they're coming to fruition. If you've been in your library, you know that within the library there's a lot of renovations and things taking place. This March, the month we're in, we are beginning to get ready to impact the exterior of the building and the new entryways. So if you look at the library here, you're familiar with on 10th Street, which is the diagonal right here, is your current entrance to the library. We'll be adding a significant entrance on the Lawrence Street Mall right here and a wraparound patio. The development of this is the entry from the Lawrence Street Mall, which will now be considered the primary entrance to the library, and we'll retain the 10th Street one as well to make your library more accessible. But you can see how it will begin to engage the Lawrence Street Mall. This is along Lawrence Street with the outdoor patios and study areas, and that will then wrap around to the 10th Street side. The overhang cover here in this photo is not quite a realistic color. This is a little closer to it. Don't worry, it's not Bronco orange. It is sort of a rusty, kind of dignified color. But the really cool part about the design is that it's very porous. The light that you see coming through is intended to make it light and airy because we recognize it's on the north side of the building. So a very, very cool addition with the study spaces. And then also the two interior areas that are actually outdoor spaces with the library. We will be renovating those two spaces and making them more livable, usable. Right now they're pretty hot. Right now there's a lot of greenery because we have water leakage problems and we can't irrigate, things like that. So we'll get all that repaired and we'll have some wonderful interior study spaces as well. Another significant project that we're making a move on in partnership with the city, we've continued our initiative of connecting our area with Denver and connecting with the community on all of the edges of the campus. This is the first initiative we're working with the city on. This is actually Colfax, and here's your light rail station. The new implementation, here's LaPan, and this really tall building is not really tall. That's the, let's see, Starbucks, Burger King area. But as you can see, we'll be adding very pedestrian-friendly improvements, median at the center, so it's a much safer place to cross, much more comfortable location. We're doing away with the dedicated bus pull-out so that we can widen the light rail platform on that side. If you've taken light rail or walked over on that side of the campus, you can appreciate it's pretty crowded over there. So we'll be repairing that, and that is in partnership with the city. Right now, if you come in on Colfax, it's pretty obnoxious. The XL is out there doing their part of the job, moving a steam line. CDOT is out there repairing the roadways. Currently, this project's already designed and has gone out to bid and should be beginning construction sometime in the fall semester. So stay tuned on that one. We also, I should note that we are also working with the city currently on the crossing at Spear and Larimer. Much more complicated solution, but we really have a strong partnership there. So hope to be bringing you some other information there as well. Then the really exciting one is the Tivoli Park. Thanks to all of you, MSU Denver, for being able to develop the athletic fields off of Colfax allows this piece of property to become something tri-institutional for everyone's use. And in particular, let me help you get your bearings here. This is part of our master plan. So you see the Tivoli right here? And then this is Larimer Street running the length of the bottom. Right now you've got the RTD bus turns right here and goes back out. So there's CU's new building. The plan is that this becomes the park right in front of the Tivoli. Of course, this space is CU's neighborhood. This green space is MSU Denver's neighborhood, a future building site. We'll be bringing the Larimer roadway in, connecting it out to the Auraria Parkway at a signalized intersection. Also, the Tivoli parking garage, Walnut Street, will be coming up to that exit, so you now have two exits out of the parking structure. But even more importantly for your neighborhood, the hotel will now be connected to the rest of the campus. Very exciting prospect from a pedestrian and a vehicular standpoint. But the really exciting thing too is the park and how it's beginning to evolve. I always like how, now Tivoli's down here at the bottom because they like to turn you around here. This is some really special space. Again, here's 11th Street coming out to the Auraria Parkway. Along this top side here, you see a green line running. That this green line right at the top along the roadway is a 2-lane bike path that will connect you up now to the north and south sides of the campus on your bike lanes and also connect to the Platte River. And as you move into some of these great spaces, right in front of the Tivoli, a series of tiered patios that help support your conference facilities. Yes, indeed, right in the center with the Tivoli Brewery will be a beer garden. The elevated platform is actually becoming the stage area for the park area so that we can work with the institutions on outdoor events, summer concert series in the park, all kinds of really cool stuff going on. And here's some depictions of the patio and the stage type area that gets created. Then to the left along the Walnut side, this triangular space, one of my favorites, is it's actually our water detention solution. So what we've done is we've created this water detention area with tall grasses, and then we'll be building decked patios out over top of that area that can be used for study, planting cottonwood trees that will grow quickly, allow shade, and you see a lot of introduction of trees here. It's our intent to be able to do some sizable ones and not the little toothpicks we usually plant. Then on the other side, another really great space. We've created a lot of different spaces. This one is a curved amphitheater area, and take a look at this space right here, and I'll show you what that becomes. Here's your curved amphitheater area. That's for smaller scale events, so you don't get lost in the space itself. And then also, this is the rectangular space. Inspired by MSU Denver, we did a study and looked at the footprint of all of the historic buildings that were there, and have discovered, lo and behold, that this was the site of the first public school in the state of Colorado. It had a very diverse student population. So what we're doing is, at that point in time, they had pews for the study area, so we are going to plot out where that footprint is, put the pews in, and also acknowledge all three institutions' academic history in that area. Larimer Street becomes a wonderful walkway with trees. To your left would be the events center. And then this is a shot actually at 11th and Larimer. The roadways are intended to be very slow speed, 15 miles an hour, very pedestrian oriented and bicycle oriented. But you can see what a special space it begins to create. We have funds from the Auraria Foundation and for $3.2 million for the project, and the students in April will be voting to assess themselves a fee to complete the project, as well as some other projects around campus. They're really passionate about this project. They're very integrated in the design of it, so we're pretty excited what could occur. We are actually, in closing, I'll tell you that we anticipate so much our ability to move forward on this, thanks to the funds that are already available. We will be breaking ground May 18th. Stay tuned. It's great.
I don't know about you, but the number of times that I am, business leaders and alumni say to me they cannot believe how our campus is being transformed. Barb and her staff have been great partners in helping to do this, and you can see some of these improvements are really going to make this an even better place to work and to study for our students. So thanks for being a part of that, Barb. We really appreciate it. So you all no doubt remember the legislative issues from last year when House Bill 1319 was passed, redesigning the funding model for higher education in Colorado. Previously, all institutions received the same percentage increase or decrease in funding, regardless of their size or mission or the inequity that existed in funding among institutions. So this new bill required a higher percentage of the total state higher education budget to be allocated for the support of tuition-paying families and lower-income students, and added retention and graduation performance criteria. At this time, with what we know today, we expect to receive in the appropriations bill this year between 14.9% and a 17% increase in funding from the state due to the positive treatment of MSU Denver in the new model. So yeah, isn't that good news? So the range of the new state revenues for us would be between $6.5 million and $7.4 million. We won't know this figure until later this month when the appropriations bill is done. Yesterday we heard that they're currently overexpended by $80 million total, so they've delayed introduction of the appropriations bill for 1 week to close that out. So I would speculate that it will probably be on the lower side rather than on the higher side as a result of some of those changes. However, as I said earlier, funding is now based on credit hour production, so it will be even more important for all of us to remain absolutely focused on enrollment and retention, as well as the issues of cost and advising from the Hanover report that I mentioned earlier. We will focus on this issue as we review options for tuition increases and our budget allocations. So we are limited to a tuition increase of no more than 6%. I just want to be clear about where I'm at on this issue. You know, for years I've been going into the legislature and saying that we have to raise tuition because you are disinvesting. It is really hard for me to go to the legislature and say, oh, you just put 17% increase in here and I still want to increase tuition 6% on students. So it is highly likely that I would be willing to make that kind of a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. Now, the Budget Task Force has not dealt with this issue yet. They need to weigh in on this and look at what the total budget is going to be. And I suspect, you know, we will support some kind of tuition increase, but I think it is really incumbent upon us to try to depress whatever that increase as much as possible for the benefit of our students. Speaking of state allocations and the budget issues, I'd like to compliment the MSU Denver Budget Task Force, which is being chaired by Vice President Kreidler, for its hard work this year to plan and prioritize our use of the funds that we have for this institution. Task Force representatives have included students, faculty, classified staff, and administrators. This group has been evaluating and prioritizing all of the budget requests, reporting back to their stakeholder groups and they will provide me with a final set of budget recommendations. We can say this because they still got a lot of work to do, but we can say this. Based on the Hanover report and among my individual priorities will be the creation and hiring of needed academic and financial aid advisors. We will be putting, and to the extent we are putting effort into new positions, they will be largely focused around those types of positions. Once the Colorado General Assembly has finalized and passed the state budget, we will factor in credit hour production, estimated enrollment, and then calculate the tuition increases that will be required. And as I mentioned, we're limited to an increase of no more than 6%, and based on the available new funding from the state, we expect to keep tuition rate increases well below that figure. Now, it is important to note that enrollment decreases have a direct impact on our revenues and can be easily offset any gains that we get from tuition rate increases. It's also important for you to understand that for every 1% drop in enrollment, that leads to a $1.8 million loss in revenues. Say that again. 1% drop in enrollment is a $1.8 million loss in revenues. Our focus on retention and enrollment is absolutely essential. So you may be saying, what's in it for me? Well, we know that we will cover mandatory classified staff races. We don't know yet what that will be. The JBC has gone through several different recommendations. The last recommendation they had for classified staff was a 1% COLA and a 1% merit. Again, we're going to have to stay tuned and wait and see what the appropriations bill ends up. On salary increases for faculty and for exempt staff, the task force has not yet addressed the issue of percentage increase. What they have addressed is that in looking at the data that we have, the Coupa comparisons, it is clear that exempt staff on average are at the Coupa average or slightly above, and faculty remain below the Coupa average. So the committee intends to give a greater percentage increase, or recommend a greater percentage increase, to faculty than to staff in order to try to move faculty closer to the median for, or the average for, the Coupa comparison groups. And then finally, while on the topic of tuition, I also want to remind you of the fact that I am very proud of. We, more than any other institution in Colorado, make it possible for students to take up to 18 credits while only paying for 12 credits. And I asked Steve Kreidler to calculate what the amount of this, quote, free education we provided last year on behalf of these hardworking students, and he said it was an astonishing $16 million. Now, I'd actually like to see that be higher, because as you know, the average credit load at Metro is actually a little bit under 12 hours. We need to be advising students to take advantage of this. The truth of it is, a student could actually pay for 2.5 years worth of tuition and get 4 years of credit and graduate. And we need to be letting our students know that. It could be much more affordable for them than they realize if they'd start taking advantage of that 6 hours for free at least one semester, but as many as they possibly can. I'd also like to report on our effort to become a designated Hispanic serving institution by 2017 and 18. In order to achieve that designation, as you know, we need to increase our Latino student enrollment to 25% of the baccalaureate degree credit hour production. This continues to be one of our highest priorities and is reflected in our general student recruitment effort. And once this is obtained, it then opens up a whole array of grant opportunities for us in every single federal agency that has grants that are limited only for competition among existing Hispanic serving institutions, HBCUs, and Native American serving institutions. The actual number of Latino students at MSU Denver, the largest of any Colorado university, has grown from 13% in 2007 to 20% in 2014. And if you add undocumented students to the list, the number of Latino students increases to 4,511, or 21.3%. Now, again, congratulations to you. The delta alone of the increase from 13% to that 20% is greater than the total number of students in the state's currently largest existing HSI, CSU Pueblo. The delta is larger. That means in total we have 3,000 more students today than the state's largest current Hispanic serving institution. If one of Colorado's 3 largest institutions, Metro, CU Boulder, or CSU Fort Collins, can't attain HSI status, this state has no chance of closing the educational attainment gap for Hispanics. So we have, I think, a really important responsibility to this state, and your work is deeply appreciated in this area. I've asked Deputy Provost Luis Torres and Esther Rodriguez, Director of the Center for Urban Education, to work with faculty and staff across the university to continue this effort. It is so critical. We've gotten so close, we can't now fail. We've got to renew our efforts to assure that we achieve this status in the next 3 years. We made a huge effort to enhance and transform the university culture this year when we named a shared governance task force chaired by Winston Grady-Willis, Africana Studies Department Chair, and Braylon Pantel, Associate Vice President for Student Engagement and Wellness. This semester, this group has been requesting input about governance, decision-making, and the university's culture through surveys and focus groups. And I want to give my thanks to the many of you who are both serving on the task force, which will complete its work in June. I know there's been a concern that when they complete this work that somehow we'll move forward this summer with the changes that they might be recommending. My assurance to you is that when they complete their work, which will be a set of recommendations about things they think we should do, then we will use that as the basis for a conversation this next academic year to really hone in on the final set of recommendations that we as a community can agree to improve shared governance on our university campus. I want to talk a minute about collegiate restructure. As an institution with university status for just 3 years, we find ourselves in a constant activity of restructuring our collegiate offerings. Right now, we have 2 schools on the table for review, a School of Social Work and the College of Arts. In addition, the Provost is appointing a task force to push forward an institute for advanced manufacturing that will support our AES initiative. And finally, we are also reviewing the possibility of adding a School of Hospitality as a part of the College of Professional Studies programs, and we will have a set of recommendations from the faculty of Hospitality, Tourism, and Events by the end of June of this year. And finally, an ongoing priority is improved local and national understanding of and respect for the university we are so proud of, and rightfully so. Our marketing and communications teams has garnered a number of national rankings, gained major visibility through news media stories and mentions, often featuring our faculty experts, refreshed a new magazine for alumni and for our friends, and publication for our internal stakeholders. And I can't end this review without giving a big shout out to everyone who is preparing for the celebration of our 50th year as a Colorado institution of higher education. MSU Denver has come a long way since its modest beginnings in 1965. We opened our doors that year to 1,189 students who had only 6 majors to choose from. And there were just 28 students in the first graduating class. Now, 50 years later, we will have great fun celebrating our 5 decades of growth and transformation and our 80,000 alumni. The year-long celebration will begin July 1st, and however, we will be doing an internal launch at our annual Faculty and Staff Appreciation Picnic on April 29th, so please stay tuned. And before I sign off this morning and open the door to questions, I want to take just a moment to offer a few congratulatory remarks to commemorate some of our outstanding achievements. I want to extend congratulations to all in the university who go out of their way to work with our veteran students. As a result, we've been recognized by the Military Times as on its 2015 list of best colleges for veterans at number 32 in the country out of 140 institutions that they recognized, and the #1 institution in Colorado for providing services to veterans. And likewise, our Department of Nutrition should be recognized for the success of our students in passing the National Registered Dietitian exam with a 100% pass rate. Isn't that amazing? I mean, this speaks volumes about the great work that's happening in that department. And I'm so pleased to remind everyone that Senior Lecturer in Marketing faculty member Darren Duber-Smith and Professor of Economics Eric Erickson were honored by the Wall Street Journal as 2 of the nation's 125 most influential professors. The award recognized faculties who are making a difference in classrooms by teaching students about current events. So many of our excellent professors receive honors every year that I can't mention all of them. So I'll conclude this talk with just one more. The recognition given to history professor Shanxing Tian. He was one of only 10 people nationwide invited to participate in a unique seminar offered by the American Association of State Colleges and Universities Japan Studies Institute this coming July. And for someone who specializes in East Asian history, including teaching a course on modern Japan, this will be a trip of a lifetime. And finally, I want to thank all of you for your hard work and for your dedication to MSU Denver's success and your contributions to helping us to become the entity that we are today. All of you are our ambassadors. You, the members of our university community, our faculty, our staff, and our students. You are the best marketers of an institution's educational products and its image to the world. Thank you on behalf of the senior leadership, on behalf of the trustees, and behalf of myself. It truly is a great day to be a Roadrunner. So, we've got a few minutes left to take some questions. I still have my coffee. So,
my name is Mark Eisenberg, and I work in the Applied Learning Center with interns. I have a question. I hope this is an appropriate forum for it, but I find our insurance is very expensive, and it struck me that if we could find a way to find a good plan for less, it would not only save employees money in their take-home, but save the university considerably. I know for me, it cuts into my take-home by about 20%. And I've done some preliminary research and found that this year, the plan that we're under with the Chiba Trust is up for review, as is the broker. And I just wonder if there's any movement to examine that and see if we can find perhaps a more affordable solution.
Well, the answer is, I think we absolutely are interested in finding the most affordable solutions, and it's one of the reasons that we're in a larger group with multiple institutions involved in it. Now, one of the issues involved with that, the reality is that that not all those locations will have access to some of the plans that might, if we were on our own, maybe work better for us individually. So that becomes part of the negotiations. But I think you could provide input on where we're at on that process.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, because I think, I mean, healthcare, I don't know there's anything that's much more important, and there's no question that the cost of healthcare goes deeply into everybody's pocketbook. This issue of working with IMA to explore whether it's feasible or not for us to have our own insurance program, I think is the kind of thing that we're trying to do. We're trying to sort of be willing to say on any issue, let's look at a whole array of alternatives and see if we can find other solutions that would work better for the university. So I encourage you to stay in contact, and thank you for raising that really important question.
Thank you.
Other questions? Oh, come on. You all realize, of course, that tomorrow's the first day of spring, so that's why it's raining today, because the day after that it'll probably snow. So, you know, this is just trying to tease us that spring is here. I don't believe it for a minute. Personally, I have a good colleague. I don't know if you know, I'm currently the chair-elect of the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, the 400-plus institutions like Metro in the country. And the chair is the president, or is the chancellor of the University of Massachusetts Boston, an institution that's very, very much like Metro. And of course, we all know how much snow Boston's been hit with. And I sent him an email the other day commiserating with him about how hard it must be to keep his campus open with all that snow. And I said, if I were you, I'd sit and hit out on that stupid little rodent in Pennsylvania, because that guy really did cause 6 more weeks of winter to come to Boston. So, any other questions? If not, I want to thank you for coming today. Again, I want to say one more time, thank you for what you do for our students. We're making a big difference. We're making a difference that no other four-year institution in the state of Colorado makes on a student population that others are not willing to take on. By the way, that reminds me, in case you were wondering, because I know at the beginning of the legislative session, everybody heard about the bill that was introduced to change our mission, Senate Bill 72, which would have changed us from our modified open enrollment mission to a moderately selective university. That bill is still sitting in the Senate Education Committee. The chair of the committee has indicated that if Senator Lambert isn't going to push it, he's not going to schedule a hearing on it. It is past the bill deadline, and so in order for the senator to actually move it on in the process, he'd have to get permission from the leadership of the Senate, and the chair of the Education Committee has said that his reading is right now that he doesn't think that the leadership would give him permission to move the bill forward at this point. And even if he did, we've been informed by the leadership of the House that they would kill that bill in the House. So if you were interested in what's happening to it, it's just sitting there. At some point they will actually, because of their rules, they'll actually have to calendar it at least to kill it by the end of the session. But right now there is no movement on the bill at all. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.